Hey, to whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be alright, so quit your words.
Hey there, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Hunters Are Here podcast, where we swap family tales from the hilarious to the heartwarming. I'm your host, Ellen, and every week we share the stories that made us laugh, cry, and sometimes roll our eyes at Uncle Buddy. Truly, it should be a movie because growing up Hunter is an experience that keeps happening. You may be familiar with my voice from a podcast that I do with my hubby, Paul, called E Says, P Says. Currently, we are on hiatus due to the mister going through some health challenges. Thankfully, he is on the mend and we should be bringing you new episodes soon. If you are listening to us for the first time, hello and welcome. Last week, I discussed my eldest aunt, Aunt Evelyn. I answered some questions about her and moments we shared. So this week, I will be discussing my second eldest aunt, Pauline. My second eldest aunt is Pauline Hayden. She was a beautician and cosmetologist in Nashville, Tennessee, where she was married to Samuel Hayden, a postman. They also had two daughters from their union, Rosetta and Sandra. I did not learn till later in life that Rosetta was her middle name and that she was named after Grandier. So her first name was Margaret and middle name Rosetta. And if there are wonders of where they were during these summers, they were grown and living in Brooklyn. Rosetta was the secretary, and Sandra worked with college financial aid students. While their daughters were out of the home, my aunt and uncle chose to welcome their nieces into their home for the summer. The best part of the summer was going to camp for 3 weeks. I attended Camp Marymount at the age of 6 or 7 for the first time and kept attending for one break at 14, and then I came back for one more year at the age of 15. Living in the city of Brooklyn, New York, and going to camp in the woods of Fairview, Tennessee were two polar opposites. Previous to attending camp, the only place I'd experienced animals, plants, and lake water were at the zoo, in the botanical gardens, or at the pool or beach. So being one with nature for the first time was a whole lot, a lot. Thankfully, that first summer, my oldest cousin, Denisha, was there, and she was my protector. On the day that they evaluated your swimming for the first time, they did it in green, mucky, yucky lake water. You couldn't see the bottom, and there was no pretty waves of sand to play in like the beach. And again, I'm in a lake for the first time, and I was petrified. So I just started hollering and crying. Who knew my cousin would come to the rescue? She happened to be swimming on the far side of the lake, which was for more advanced swimmers. As she heard me and she came running. By the time she got there, they had calmed me down. However, she stayed for a while to make sure I was okay. Then let me know to just holler again if I needed her. Though we are first cousins, she is more like a sister. She is the daughter of my favorite aunt, Clarine, and somehow, if I need protecting to this day, if I holler, she got me. And she always showed up that first year in camp at moments she knew I would need her. I remember horseback riding for the first time. I think her cabin had just finished riding, and our cabin was coming in to ride. Not sure why everyone loved horseback riding. They are pretty to look at, but can be a little vicious. Again, city kid. I think that was the first time I was that close to a real horse. So the counselors in charge went over the rules and regulations. As they did, they tried to get us to pet the horses and become familiar with them so we wouldn't spook them and they wouldn't throw us. When it was time to pick a horse, my cousin had waited and suggested that I choose Honey. She said she was really gentle, and as long as I stayed calm, we should do well. The only parts I don't like about horseback riding are getting on and off. Horses are pretty tall, no matter your age or height. Those saddles are also tricky. Oh, yes. And I do not care for English saddles. I prefer Western. Oh, and I do not like horses' heads/mouths. And that was another thing we had to do. We had to get our horse from the fence where it was tied, and when we were done, tie them back up. Horses bite, so I was never comfortable doing that. Again, city kid. At camp, there were several activities we participated in daily through a lottery system: riflery, archery, nature hikes, arts and crafts, tennis, trampoline, swimming, horseback riding, and I am sure many, many, many more. We did 2 activities after breakfast and 2 after lunch. I loved all the activities except the nature hikes. There were chiggers, snakes, frogs, bugs, poison ivy, and a plethora of other wildlife I did not care to be around. On one hike, I had the privilege of finding a snake and started screaming. Do you know what they said? I needed to calm down because I was scaring the snake. I just shook my head. What in the world? What about what it did to me? Camp Marymount was a Catholic camp, so we attended Mass and raised the flag daily before breakfast. And we lowered the flag daily before dinner. And bedtime was at 9 and taps was played, and we were up again at 7 for calisthenics. I also enjoyed camp because of the good food and having access to the canteen after lunch, where we could get soda, candy, chips, and ice cream. Similar to commissaries in jail, your parents needed to put money on your books. LOL. After 3 weeks of camp, my aunt and uncle opened their home to us. My uncle would come home daily from work and take a nap. This was new to me because my father's job was the total opposite, and he was rarely home that early, and when he did, there was no taking a nap. At least not officially. He might fall asleep in front of the TV after dinner. However, during this time, we had to be quiet, so we would usually read or end up taking a nap ourselves from boredom. Once he woke from his nap, he would do his house chores. He would mow the lawn or some other outside activity. He would also do side work by fixing radios and TVs. He eventually turned this into working with and repairing computers once he retired. Around the time he was completing his chores, my aunt would get home from the beauty shop and prepare dinner. It was usually something healthy. Yuck. Yes, I ate healthily at home, but this was health food store next level food. Eating granola crunch, everything was baked, and okra. Yuck. The best part of the summer after camp was the church fish fry. My aunt would bake pies and cakes, and the men of the church would go fishing the week or so before and fry their wares. It was great. Soda, juice, cake, fried fish, and fries. The best part of the desserts was something I did not know existed till I stayed with them. Chess pie. It is delicious. However, it is nothing but butter, sugar, vanilla, eggs, flour, cornmeal, and evaporated milk. If done right, it comes out looking like a chessboard. And yes, as healthily as my aunt cooked, she could bake, and not all of her food was bad. A tuna salad and baked chicken with rosemary and bay leaves was delicious. After the fish fry, it was back to her health food meals. They all weren't bad, just a lot different than I was used to eating at home. Then there were the chores. Their house was on 3/4 of an acre and back to the railroad tracks. And near the tracks is where her garden was, and there were all kinds of bugs and snakes and rabbits and whatever other vermin could find its way down there. She wanted us to help weed the garden. Then there were shrubbery worms, which I'm convinced only grow in Tennessee because I've never seen them anywhere else. Shrubbery worms are little worms that attach themselves to shrubs like caterpillars and make a cocoon. If you don't remove them, they will kill your shrubs. Disgusting. So, we would pick those off the shrubs and my uncle would burn them. She would also take us to her beauty parlor and do our hair and have us do chores in there like sweep and help the customers. And yes, my aunt would also take us to the hair fair in Atlanta, Georgia, and we would stop by my great aunt Julia's home on the way back in Montgomery, Alabama. Aunt Julia was Grandia's sister, and she had a little hunchback, but that did not stop her from getting around. It was here that I met my Aunt Corrine and cousin Sadie. My aunt was a widow by the time I met her, but they had a family cleaners and laundry next to the house. It was fun for me and my cousin Maya to play in the cleaners by working with the steamers and ironing equipment. Maya also joined me and Denisha for camp. However, after the first year, it was just me and Maya for a few years. We could also help at the counter with the customers. After this trek, my aunt would head home and we stayed till the end of the summer most years. The first summer, my aunt Maddie and her husband, Uncle Jay, drove, drove through Tennessee on their way back from Alabama, heading home to Princeton, New Jersey. They also drove us back to D.C. to drop off Maya and Princeton, New Jersey, where my parents picked me up to take me back to Brooklyn. On the trip back, my cousin Denisha and my aunt had some words, so it was tense in the car. Once we dropped off Maya in DC, my cousin Denisha said she was not staying in Princeton. So when we got to Princeton, my aunt or cousin called someone to pick her up, and I was there by myself. Though my aunt and uncle do have a son, he was away at school. As a matter of fact, every family gathering, he was away at school. Since I'm a lot younger, I thought to myself, wherever he is going to school, I don't want to go there. LOL. Needless to say, Denisha did not return the next summer. She was also older than me and was in senior camp, so that next year she would have been 15 or 16 and could work in the city as a teen. So I believe she took that option. The following summer, it was just me and Maya. And because of our age difference, that was her last year as well. So I spent a few summers by myself, and my aunt and uncle before my younger sister joined me. And shortly after my sister joined me, my cousins returned from the big city, Brooklyn, New York, which made the time in Nashville so much better. There was real food, and my cousin Rosetta was going through a popcorn phase, so there was lots of popcorn and TV in the evenings. So similar to the episodes with previous family members, I have some questions I located on the interwebs to ask about my relatives. Also, I'm currently telling stories from my point of view. I have reached out to my first cousins, and hopefully, some of them will join me to share their experiences. And I can ask them the same questions because everyone has a point of view on family members that is different from mine. And I would be more than happy to hear the tea. LOL. So, what is your earliest memory of them? Going to camp at 6 or 7 and staying with her and my uncle for the summer? How would you describe their personality in 3 words? Quiet, strong, and opinionated. What role did they play in your life growing up? She taught me about the importance of taking care of yourself, your home, and learning new things. She taught me how to sew, iron, knit, and crochet. What is something they always said or a phrase you associate with them? Not that I can recall. I don't remember one thing she said all the time. What's one thing they taught you that still sticks with you today? Ironing. I do believe it was the first or second summer my aunt pulled out the ironing board and ironed, and she was like, iron your uncle's shirts because anybody that's listening has been to the post office, hopefully, and you see that the postmen have their blue shirts. They've always had those shirts, but my um, aunt would wash and iron his at home as opposed to taking them to the cleaners or the laundry to have them done. And they also had sheets that needed to be ironed. So you didn't have no iron sheets at that time either. So when she handed me this stuff, I was like, "What do you want me to do with this?" And she said, "You don't know how to iron?" And I was like, no." And she said, "Your mother didn't teach you how to iron?" And I was like, "No." So she was like, "Well, what does your mother do with your father's dress shirts and your sheets?" I said, "A man comes every Friday morning before we go to school. My mother hands him our sheets in the pillowcase and my father's shirts and whatever other cleaning items we have in the house. He takes them, he brings back the sheets. They're all nice and folded in a pretty plastic. And my father's shirts are in a lovely box. We take them upstairs. My father puts them in his dresser. We put the sheets in the cabinet in the bathroom, and we're ready for the next week." And my aunt just thought that was the funniest thing. She laughed and said, "That sounds like Betty Joyce." And I was like, learning how to iron is a great skill. However, I think I think it was Martinis. That was the name. If you have the ability to hire someone to do household chores, that's my goal in life. Let somebody else do it. But it's always good to know these things yourself because you never know in a pinch if you have an issue what you need to do. So I did teach my sons, both of my sons know how to iron. They know how to wash their own clothes. The sewing piece, no, I didn't really teach them how to sew. I would either, maybe a button or two, I would put them back on or things of that nature. But if any hemming had to be done, I would take it to a seamstress or something. Yes, I am my mother's child. I learned to source stuff out, and that's really a good sign of a far thinker. One less chore for me to do. And how did they handle hard times or challenges? Prayer and hard work. What's a time they made you laugh really hard? My aunt came to pick us up from the pool. We would go to the Y to swim while she was at work. This day, I wanted to show her my diving off the high dive. So I let her know what I was going to do. And when it took me a while to come back up, she locked the keys in the car because she was frightened something had happened to me. So when I walked out from changing at the pool, she was trying to get the keys out. And though it was evening, it was the South and it was hot. Not sure if the police came or someone was able to get a coat hanger and lift the lock. For those of you youngsters listening, car locks used to stick up like a knob, and if you could crack your window, you could use a coat hanger at the right angle and pull the lock up. And this wasn't funny till she got the door unlocked. Did you ever have a falling out or disagreement? In my teen years, I was a little mouthy, and this one day my aunt told me to do something, and I was like, no, and gave her some lip. So she decided, so she acted like she was going to spank me, and I was like, running shoes, activate. So I went to the garage and hit the button, and she was like, don't you dare run into the yard. I froze and was like, well, I'm not coming back in there. How did how did you work it through? Suffice it to say, I had to go back in. I was in Tennessee. There were no cell phones and I couldn't walk home, but I did let my parents know I was ready to come home. What's something you wish you had said to them or wish they had said to you? I wished I would have apologized to her for my teenage angst and thanked her for opening her home to us and expanding my mind to another way of living. Also, thank her again because I did not know she and my uncle footed some of the bill for camp. That is sisterly love. How how have they shaped your views on love, family, or identity? She helped me understand that you can be quiet and strong. That religion is important. We attended church and Bible study every Sunday, and this summer. She also showed me a more feminine way of living. She was never subservient to my uncle, but she made sure he was taken care of and vice versa. He would make sure her car was maintained. If anything needed doing around the house, he took care of it. He worked hard and so did she, but they found moments to watch TV together or have conversations over dinner. Tell me about a day with them you'll never forget. We were coming back from Atlanta, Alabama, and it had been raining hard. There was a big puddle, but you couldn't tell how deep it was, so my aunt drove through it, and when we got to the other side, the car stalled. Thankfully, there was a payphone not too far away, and my aunt was able to call my uncle at home and AAA. I think my uncle got there before AAA and suggested she try to start the car again. It started. Between him and AAA, they figured out she wet whatever under the car because the puddle was really deep. And once it had a few moments to dry, it was fine. This was a little scary. I was in the back sleeping like kids do on road trips, and we were on a side of town where there were no people, only businesses, and it was dark. This was the thing of horror movies. Was there a family tradition or event they made special? She started our family reunions. She had the first one in her backyard in 1974. They took us out of camp for a few days for it. What's the funniest or most surprising story involving them? My aunt remained a health fanatic till she passed away. However, I got my moment. My cousin and sister were graduating college the same weekend in Massachusetts, not too far from each other. And my cousin Sandra and my aunt's younger daughter asked me to drive them to my cousin's graduation that Sunday. And when we returned, she would treat me to dinner. Since I was grown, married, and had a child grown, when we returned, I ordered the prime rib for dinner. And my aunt commented the whole time I ate it. She talked about the effects of meat on the body and if I could be eating, and then if I should be eating meat this late, and on and on. That was the best prime rib dinner ever. I just kept on eating. Delish. Do you have a photo or item that reminds you of them? What's the story behind it? I do have my aunt's obituary. There is also the sibling photo from the first reunion and a few other family events through the years. But at the time we were doing all of the summer visits, we really never took pictures. Not sure why, and I do not have an item, but whenever I iron, latch hook, or think about knitting or sewing, I think about her. What would be a perfect day with them? What would a perfect day with them look like? Well, I would get up around 3 a.m. to start her day. She would fix my uncle's breakfast and lunch. She would check her garden. She would go for her walk. She would come back and fix her coffee and get dressed. Wake us up if we were going with her that day. We would get dressed, eat breakfast, and head off to the shop. She would also bring lunch with her, too. If she had time, she would take a nap during lunch or for about an hour. Start back with her clients around 2 or 3 p.m., finish by 5, stop at the grocery store if necessary, get home, change clothes, fix dinner, clean the kitchen, and head outside to check her garden. She'd take a shower and she was ready for bed by 8 or 9 o'clock. How are you like them or how are you different? I'm willing to open my home to family and others when needed. However, I am not as organized or steadfast about eating as healthily as I should. What part of their legacy do you try to carry forward? As with all of my aunts and uncles, education is important. And whenever she took her trip to the Atlanta Beauty Fair, she was always taking seminars to learn something new. She was also sharing new places and things with us. One year we went through Chattanooga and visited the Incline, and another year we drove through Huntsville, Alabama to visit the Space Center. We also met a family friend in Georgia one time and went to Six Flags. That was really cool. She did also take us to Opryland. If you live in Tennessee now, Opryland was not always a clothing outlet. It used to be an amusement park, and she took us there a couple of times. And she didn't take us to a show at the Grand Ole Opry, but we did like the Grand Ole Opry tour a few times when we went to Opryland. If they could be a guest on this podcast, what would you ask them? What made you so diligent about your health and the food options you chose? And why did you become a beautician? How do you think they want to be remembered? As the quiet force that she was, never loud or boisterous, she would say what she needed to say, and that was that. In one sentence, how would you sum up their impact on your life? She opened my world to a different type of living that a lot of city kids never have the opportunity to have in their lives. I learned a lot from my aunt during those summers. She even undertook expanding my and Maya's education. One of her neighbors was a retired teacher, and we had the privilege of being tutored by Miss Johnson, me in reading and Maya in math. It was torture. It was summertime, time for kids to roam free and explore. There would be that would be a no. Miss Johnson would not let you free till you could get those vowel sounds correct. Or for my cousin, it was math. To this day, I can still recite A-E-I-O-U and tell you the vowels and sometimes why from those lessons at 8 or 9 years old. Do you have an Aunt Pauline in your life? Did she open your mind to a different way of living? Did she teach you homemaking or nutrition skills that you use to this day? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Now that we've discussed my second eldest aunt, I will stop right here and pick it up next week with my third eldest aunt, Corrine. Thanks so much for joining us this week. Please make sure to subscribe to The Hunters Are Here on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. You can also check us out on Facebook under Mock Media Group, as well as our website, mockmediagroup.com, where you can listen and learn about all things mock. Want to do more? Support us by filling our cup at buymeacoffee.com/Mock Media Group or subscribe on any podcast platform so you don't miss an episode.
Hey, to whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be alright, so quit your worrying. I get it, the odds can stack back.